The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
It is now 6 minutes after 8. A very good morning to you and a warm welcome to the Forum at 8 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Well, this morning we're discussing an issue that I guess touches just across the society. The issue of social cohesion. Yesterday, Minister Paul Mashatile, Minister of Arts, Culture, he was in Parliament talking about these matters. He spoke about a summit on social cohesion, which will take place next month. But among other things, he said that as far as he's concerned, he believes the country is on track to become a more socially cohesive nation. What are your thoughts then on this? You know what I've done, just quickly, I've actually just gone to Wikipedia just to look at the definition of social cohesion, because there's all sorts of interpretations of what this means. Their interpretation, for instance, is that social cohesion is a multi-dimensional concept, and various definitions can be found in the literature. They include social cohesion is a process of building shared values and communities of interpretation, reducing disparities in the wealth and income, and generally enabling people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. Now, if we were to take that definition, for instance, would you then agree with Minister Paul Mashatile that in South Africa we are on track to becoming a more socially cohesive nation? Of course, he also had to deal with questions about whether or not this debate on social cohesion is a reaction to the debate around Brett Murray's The Spear painting. He says that the debate is not so much about that. It's actually not a knee-jerk reaction to that. But he says that debate about the spear has not taken the country back, but awoken South Africans to the knowledge that we are not there just yet. So, I would like to hear your thoughts then on what the minister was saying here yesterday. Arts and Culture Minister Paul Mashatile speaking in Parliament. Send me an email this morning. Do you agree that we are very well on our way to becoming a more socially cohesive nation? gwalax@sabc.co.za. gwalax@sabc.co.za. I'll also be taking SMSs at 34701, 34701. And in a minute or two, I'll also introduce you to my guest. But first, let me play you this report coming out of Parliament from Zelin Merrington.
The spear painting depicting President Jacob Zuma with his private parts exposed has caused heated debate recently. But Arts and Culture Minister Paul Mashatile says while it's not the idea behind the summit, it is a good starting point for debate.
The issues of social cohesion and nation building must take into regard issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, underdevelopment, issues of gender. So we're not going to clap down to discuss racism and say, look, this is a summit, is there racism or not in South Africa? We want to discuss issues of socio-economic development. We have to be worried about whether people have social amenities. Do they have jobs? Do they have access to education, healthcare? It was not necessitated by the spear.
Mashatile says the summit takes place at Kliptown, where the Freedom Charter was adopted in 1955, so that South Africans can reflect on the progress the country's made. He says it's also a forum for South Africans to talk about shared values. He specifically mentioned that he hoped to see parties and organizations like the Freedom Front Plus taking part. The party's leader, Peter Mulder, says they would welcome the summit.
The recipe that the ANC has been using for reconciliation has been the last 10 years it's not working as far as I'm concerned. Minority groups specifically are feeling estranged in South Africa. We asked more than once. A conference like this is very important to start discussing these issues. But you must remember it's only the first step. As long as certain statements are being made against minority groups, like farmers being killed or whatever, you're still in trouble.
Mashatile says tough, frank debate will be welcome during the summit. In preparation, the department will circulate a document entitled A National Strategy for Developing an Inclusive and Cohesive South African Society for public comment. Zelin Merrington, SABC News, Parliament.
Right, in a minute or two, then I'll introduce you to my guest on the program. But again, as I said, I would like to hear what your thoughts are. gwalax@sabc.co.za. 34701 is the SMS line here on the program.
The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
Well, then let's welcome on our program this morning Mr. Sibusiso Xaba. He is the Director General with the Department of Arts and Culture. He's in our Sea Point studios. Mr. Xaba, good morning to you.
Good morning, Glenn.
Thank you very much. I really thank you very much for your time. Also on the line, we're joined by Dr. Marjorie Jobson, National Director of Khulumane Support Group. Dr. Jobson, good to hear from you again.
Good morning, Tolani.
Thanks indeed for your time. And my special guest here is Davi Nodia. I'll tell you a little bit about Davi. Davi contacted us after one of the programs that we did with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and also we were just talking generally about how to heal the wounds of this country. He has an interesting dimension, interesting views that he has taken on these matters. We'll hear from Davi in a minute. Good morning, though, Davi. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Tolani, it's good to speak to you.
Thanks indeed for coming through. Let me start with the DG, though, in the Department of Arts and Culture, Mr. Xaba. Again, explain to us what the intention of the upcoming summit is, because we hear the minister saying it's not about racism, but it is about, what, socio-economic issues? How do you differentiate that?
Okay. Thanks, Tolani. Firstly, let's take a couple of steps back. You'll recall that the president said, I think it was last year, that we need to make time as South Africans to talk about us, to talk about our values, about what is it to be South African, and really talk about our nation-building agenda. Since then, we have been working on various programs, working with communities, understanding how communities see our values, how they see what it means to be South African, what are the things that divide us, and what are the things that we agree on as South Africans. That entire process led to the document that was spoken about earlier on, which is going to be the main document for discussion at the summit. But over and above that, you'd recall that the National Planning Commission released a diagnostic study last year and actually touched on social cohesion and inequality as some of the problems that we've got, the challenges that we've got to address with urgency as a country if we're going to achieve the real fruits of our democracy.
So if we talk about social cohesion, though, what exactly are we talking about? What is your understanding of social cohesion?
Social cohesion, as you said, I like the Wikipedia definition. But really, it is multidimensional. It talks about, firstly, about unity, nation building. It talks about building a nation in which we all have a stake. That, to me, is a good working definition of social cohesion. But a stake that people think is important for them to defend, a stake that people believe is important for them to advance and to reach out beyond the divisions that exist in society. But also it is about finding equality, reaching higher levels of equity within society, and a society that gives opportunity to everyone.
You know what I don't know, though, is whether or not we can actually start with social cohesion, or social cohesion is as a result of you doing certain things. In other words, you address socio-economic inequalities in society, therefore you end with social cohesion.
Well, in a sense, it is, Kolani, but
it's the outcome of a process.
It's an outcome of a variety of processes.
Yeah.
Some of the processes are about service delivery, but some of the processes are about actually talking about things like values, talking about things that divide us, talking about things that cause tensions, talking about, how do we contribute towards the building of society? How do we create new opportunities for people to actually contribute towards the building of the South African nation?
And the reason why I'm asking that is because you then have skeptics saying, well, once you start talking about social cohesion, you're actually running away from the hard issues of deal with issues of inequality in society, deal with issues of racism, and the outcome will be social cohesion.
Well, in fact, it's part of the same debate. We have to deal with the hard issues of racism. We've got to deal with the hard issues of inequality. But in doing that, we've got also to deal about the future that we envision and how people participate towards it. Interestingly, after the minister spoke in Parliament yesterday, we have received numerous requests, people saying, we want to participate, we want to We want to find opportunities to participate in our communities as well as in the national process. So South Africans do want to participate. They want to discuss these things because they realize that whilst we are dealing with the difficult things, there's got to be an opportunity for us to participate in building this country.
And you know, again, I may sound a little like a skeptic here because South Africans may want to participate simply to highlight to government that the reason why we do not have a socially cohesive society is because of A, B, C, and D. It's because people are hungry, angry, unemployed, HIV issues, and all the other issues that we have in our society.
Colin, it's true, but we've got to look at this thing in context. Those things are being addressed on a daily basis. Jobs are being created. Yes, there are difficult circumstances that we come across. Services are being delivered. Yes, there might be, dissatisfaction in different areas. But those things, that's a long-term project. It is happening on a daily basis.
All right.
But people are not waiting for all of those things to be in an idyllic situation before we can talk about a united nation. People want to build and want to contribute towards building that as we go along and addressing socio-economic problems.
Dr. Jobson, what is your take here? Do you think that there's space for us to discuss this as opposed to address the root causes of the lack of cohesion?
Kolani, I think this is a very critical time to be addressing this. There are many, it's one of our most important outstanding issues to unite people on a social basis, on the basis of real relationships, not relationships of people who have and want to do for others, but in finding each other and what we can give to each other. And I think we're a nation that is not listening to each other. We're not listening to the poor people. Poor people find that members of parliament do not listen to them. We welcome this opportunity of the Summit on Social Cohesion that's coming, and we think that there is really a crisis of unresolved issues which the DG has spoken about, where the people's dignity has not yet been restored to them, and there are ways in which we can do that, not for people but with people. The divisions, I think, are still widening. This is not an exercise that can be done from the top down. I mean, we built our democracy from the ground up. The people did it every day in standing up against apartheid, subjugation and oppression. And I think we need to build it in the same way. And we need to have spaces where we can truly listen and learn from each other and not think we have the right answers. What I think the DG was saying, where we become real equals and we can confront these very, very difficult gaps that are widening. The lack of access to opportunities is a particular one. There's no shortage of incredible passion and vision amongst people to do things, but somehow our system is constraining us from achieving it. And sometimes it's the politics that prevents us from achieving it, rather than us as people doing it for ourselves. So I think this is a very important discussion.
Sure. Davi, in the email that you wrote to us after our chat with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, was that you said that you think people must get involved in practical ways, and that there are ways in which you are practically getting involved. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I was actually very touched by that conversation, very emotional as well. And I realized that there were so many of my fellow South Africans that are still struggling with healing, still struggling with dealing with forgiveness and bitterness and stuff like that. And I'm sitting, kind of comfortable in my little home there in the East Rand. And, we are so separated. And I've got this huge desire to actually be involved with just providing and working with people that are struggling with healing. And, you might, there's a saying that says you don't have to be wrong to repent. And I get very emotional about this because I believe that there are so many South Africans still working with bitterness and healing about past issues, and we just carry on. And there's no, place for, as the previous Dr. Johnson actually said, there's no place for us to get together and actually talk about these real issues. And so my email was in response to saying, I'm available. I want, as a normal, just, South African, want to be involved with, if there's some of my fellow South Africans that needs to have this conversation about apartheid and about the hurt of the past, to extend forgiveness, even though I'm possibly part of a next generation, but I still want to have that conversation and still want to be there for my fellow South Africans because I'm a part of this country. And so, yes, there's this frustration that we want to do this, but where do we do this? How do we get into this conversation? And so that was actually a cry for myself. I thought just today I'm not going to just sit and not do or say anything about this. I'm going to speak to the producer of this program, and I'm going to get on my email and say, please, guys, just give us some form of, a channel of where we can get involved in this issue, because definitely, to me, that's the heart of what's going on into our country. And we keep on leaving this and thinking, it's going to be great and it's going to work out. But in the meantime, we pass, these core issues, we don't address them. And I think that's the thing that's possibly keeping us from going to the next level in our country. And I, as a normal South African, want to be involved and want to have that place where I can be available and say, guys, as a white South African, I'm part of this country, but I want to be involved with the core issue of, getting past this thing of, the bitterness and the hurt of the past, and whatever that means for me to help a fellow South African, I want to be involved.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I really just hold the line, then hold your thoughts around that, Davi, because I'm going to ask the DG whether is that the kind of conversation that they're anticipating going forward. But also, I'm going to open the lines here for you if you have anything that you'd like to really add in as far as this discussion is concerned, if you want to weigh in. The number to dial this morning, 0891 104 208. 0891 104 208. I'll be taking SMSs at 34701. Emails coming in at gwalax@sabc.co.za, GWALAX @sabc.co.za, 24 after 8.
The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
All right, let me read some emails and take one or two calls here. Somebody says, Minister Mashatile is not leaving in South Africa. We are far from achieving the ideal. Note that the summit will only have elites in attendance. The people who face the realities daily won't be there, and this will become yet another talk shop. Inclusive engagements at ward or municipal level is the way to go. Surely by now we know what divides us: poverty, unemployment, lack of basic services, etc. Let's give basic services to our people and we'll realize social cohesion. An email that came through from Kukulake. Another email, it came through, is it Feds, who says, it's not true that we are yet there, and I'm surprised that the minister is only realizing this now. This matter has not been dealt with extensively, as we have been in pretense since the advent of democracy. Things like the spear painting will always prove us wrong that we are not a reconciled South African nation. That's Andres Mufokeng from the University of the Free State who sent that email. Now the email came through from Ndungane HT. It says, in the South African context, it means not irritating the ANC, COSATU and SACP. It means ignoring the weaknesses of the incumbents and pretend all is well, as long as those in office continue to have fat dripping down their chins. We are on the way to hell, and cohesion is a pipe dream that will never be achieved under the current leadership in Parliament. An email that came through from Ndungane HT a while ago. Vugani Nkosi Enanda says it's a fact that the elite in this country are dominant and powerful in all aspects, and in brackets says white. The primary or core healing we need is economic freedom for South Africans holistically, as well as amending our constitution so that it talks to the values, cultures, norms and beliefs of South Africans and not the Westerners. Until the above fundamental issues are addressed, I promise you social cohesion, empowering and enhancing discourse would be a futile exercise. Vugani Nkosi Enanda. Let me quickly go to Funani in East London. Good morning to you, Funani.
Morning, Xolani, and greetings to your guest.
Hi, welcome.
In the African context, we've got what we call a dummy. Maybe there's a name for it in English. The thing you give a baby, instead of giving a baby food, to give that thing for a baby to suckle, and then psychologically a baby thinks there's something happening. Yeah. It's the very same thing. Actually, it didn't start with this call for social cohesion. The Freedom Charter was a dummy. And then in this country, after 1994, we're given this Truth and Reconciliation, which was also a dummy. You see, Colin, if you go to the happiest countries in the world, the Scandinavian countries, one thing, like you raised this repeatedly, that inequality is one of the reasons why there would be no social cohesion. You can have this summit. Then what? After it, then what? You go there, you talk, as your SMSs and emails are saying. This is just another talk shop. When people raise real concerns, they will be told that, wait, we have a social cohesion coming, or wait, we just had a social cohesion coming, when social cohesion would never be an argument that would be, a tangible argument later. You'll be told there's another thing coming, race, concept, whatever, conference. So this is waste of money, waste of time.
Funani in East London, thank you. Let me quickly get the DG to respond before I take the news headlines. Mr. Gaba.
Yes, sir.
Including SMSs and emails as well.
Yeah. Look, then, it's quite interesting because even if you look at the views that are being expressed by SMS and email, there are varying views on this. Some people feel this is necessary and we've got to find a way. And I kind of appreciate Davi, I think it's Davi, his initiative. He says he wants to participate. He wants to discuss these things. He wants to look for solutions. These are not just discussions. We are trying to find solutions. And solutions are not going to be just grand ideas coming up. Solutions are being found in communities every day. People find ways of working together, of overcoming difficulties on an ongoing basis. I think, Kolani, that it's important that we note that. Secondly, the summit is a culmination of a long process in which we have had with communities. Communities have defined their own values. They've said the things that they are happy about, the things that they disagree about, and things that they believe they can do towards building those bridges that divide us. Thirdly, Kolani, I don't think that people are saying meet all our basic needs and eradicate inequality, and then we'll talk about values. People are saying, we are people, we are alive, we need to meet basic needs, we need jobs, we need to deal with inequality. But whilst doing that, there is this other side of us which wants to be united, which wants to build a nation. Yeah. Let's work these things together in tandem. And that's exactly the platform that we're providing.
Okay, all right. Let me take the news headlines then. Of course, I'll be taking more calls. 0891 104 208 34701. Your SMSs and Gwala X at sabc.co.za.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
Talking social cohesion here on the Forum at 8 this morning. This after Arts and Culture Minister Paul Mashatile yesterday announced that there will be a summit taking place next month. But among other things, he said that he thinks that we are on our way to becoming a more socially cohesive nation. And I'm taking your thoughts then on this social cohesion. What are your thoughts? Do you think that we are becoming that socially cohesive nation? 34701. Remember my guests on the program, Sbusiso DG of the Department of Arts and Culture. I'm also joined by Dr. Marjorie Jobson, National Director of Kulumani Support Group, as well as Davin Odia, who is one of our listeners. He sent us an email after a discussion that we had on how to heal this nation going forward, and he's got practical suggestions about everybody being involved in order to make sure that we deal with the hurt of our nation. Let me do this. Let me get a comment quickly from Dr. Jobson before I again read a whole lot of emails that are coming through here.
Thank you, Kolani. I'm really grateful for Davin Odia's position, and we would really love to engage with him. We have very strong Kulumani groups on the East Rand, and I think this will be a very interesting opportunity to start building connection there. And I think Davi is completely right. He talks about the healing that is needed, and I think what we haven't recognized is the extent to which apartheid damaged all of us in different ways. When I have been in Parliament presenting Kulumani submissions in Parliament, I have been astounded to find members of Parliament who say, we are victims, and Kulumani is leading a movement of people who are saying, we will not accept being labelled a victim. We are the people who will heal our communities. So I think there's a real problem around accepting that real damage was done, and we have to heal ourselves before we can build the social cohesion that we aspire to. That's what worries me. And people who are in positions of privilege or political power do not realize the extent to which we have to do the internal healing and transformation before we can achieve this in terms of all the material things, bridging all the gaps. So that's what we would like to see happen.
Let me just get a quick comment, though, from you, Dr. Jobson, about people such as Funane, for instance, in East London, who says, as far as is concerned, this is yet another dummy. We're being sold a dummy here. Instead of grappling with the daily grind, the real issues, hardcore issues, we're being diverted to deal with social cohesion. Unless we deal with those issues, there won't be any social cohesion in our society, he says.
Kolani, the real issues start with the personal transformation. I mean, apartheid made white people think they had all the solutions. There was incredible cultural imperialism brought by the missionaries to this country. I don't think we've resolved the damage that did to the people of this continent and especially this region. And so we have an enormous amount to do in terms of listening to each other, hearing each other's pain. I mean, the reality is that the spear gave us a sense of how deep that hurt is, and we do have to be willing to hear the pain and understand how we have inflicted that pain on each other. I mean, I think the TRC, there was a problem with the way the TRC operated in that it identified individuals who could be named as the guilty perpetrators rather than making us all sort of people who were participating in a very in a terrible system that hurt all of us. It made some of us think we're better than others, and we haven't undone that because that was a collective problem. And I think we have to deal with the individual need for healing to overcome that kind of division, and we'd love to do that with Davi, with the people that he works with. I think we could make a wonderful, wonderful progress.
Sure. Davi, I'm getting a couple of emails, and I'm going to read some for you a little later on. People saying that they would like to work with you in as far as these matters are concerned. Just your overall response then to what we're talking about.
Yes, I can't agree more with Dr. Jobson there, because I believe if you start talking to a person as a person, and you want to understand his heart issues, and as a secondary byproduct, I believe that you will get to socio-economic issues, because you can't speak to a person, just at one part of him. So for me, one of the great things that I started now was the first thing that I think we need to do as South Africans is to understand each other, is to break the language barrier. So I went onto UNISA's website, and they are offering free, Zulu and all their courses. So I believe that it's my duty as a South African to start learning those languages. And what I've done is I've started to greet South Africans that I would know that would speak Zulu or whatever in my broken way. I've just started this. But just a response to see when you address somebody and say, Sawubona, Njani, Sikona Njani, whatever the case may be, just a change of, it's almost like somebody is lighting up and saying, oh, you're interested in me as a person. I mean, there's no way I can believe that if we start doing this, that it will filter down to socioeconomic issues. So I think if we address those hot issues, because they are, we all South African, we are part of this country. It's so much part of us. I went to America for a while, and when I came back, I was sitting in the airplane with a black South African just behind me. And as we landed, we both looked at each other, and it was like this immediate response of we just hugged each other. We don't know each other from a bar of soap, but we had this unifying thing that we are part of South Africa. And we walked together on this plane. We were both from America, and we were like, we are South African. And so I think if we realize this and the power, but we have to have this forum of a place where this plane, we connected, and there was a connection. So, I don't know, yeah.
All right, let me take some calls. Let's hear what other people have got to say here, Davi. Let's go to Nogu in Cape Town. Hello, Nogu.
Polan, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for your call.
I'm good. It's Nogu Katom from Cape Town. I am so up to the idea that we need to talk. South Africans are bitter. They are bitter. I'm glad that we came to understanding that we really need to talk about this, not to forget about it, but to face it and forgive it, because this past is killing us. It's killing us big time, especially as young people. I'm running NGO for single parents. It's about forgiving your past. When you're listening to those young people, they will tell you that I'll never forget white person. And immediately you look at that person in his face, you'll see the anger. we need to talk. Government needs to invest in this process because we need to be healed. That's all I want to say. I'm up to it. I was touched by Dave. I would love to get his contact. I'm not sure if it's Davi or Dave.
Davi.
But yes, I would love to get his contact.
All right. I'm going to ask him to just give us his email address maybe a little later on, because there are a lot of other people as well on SMS and email who would like to get his contact details. Davi, I'll ask you to just give us your contact details later on. Jag is in Cape Town. Hello, Jag. Hey, but Hello. It says Jag here. Who's this?
It's Yaj.
Yeah, hi. Go ahead, Yaj.
Hi, Clara. What I would like to say is that, it's more of an economic and class issue. And the inequalities and the worsening economic situation is exacerbating and making the racial divisions worse. And until such time as we address the whole economic issues and the financial system, which creates, scarcity of the money in circulation is based on interest and debt, that's causing a global financial crisis that is unsustainable. And we can see the breakdown of social cohesion in places like Greece, homogeneous countries, with one, on the whole, one racial group, but there's breakdown in the social fabric caused by this economic crisis. And driving behind this economic crisis is the whole issue of peak oil. There's a lot of denial in the media about this. People don't want to address it because it's a difficult issue, and denialism is not going to get us anywhere. Until we meet these challenges, until we understand that this financial system divides people, it reinforces the inequalities in society, and it creates more poverty. We need to address the money system as a root cause of the breakdown in social cohesion and promoting racial disharmony.
All right, Yaj in Cape Town, I thank you. Let's go to Faisal here in Mayfair. Good morning to you, Faisal.
Hi.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Hi, Total. I see your guest and many South Africans are grappling and wrestling with the idea of what is social cohesion and those values of the social cohesion. On my side, I found a solution a long time ago. I've embraced our constitution as the social cohesion and the values that represents all South Africans, And I think the United States is a good example of a country that we should look at, to be able to bind us all together, because they've also faced similar diversity and also with a similar constitution as well. I'm also against I have no problem with Davi's thinking, but I think we've been through this Christian healing process before as well. I mean, we've had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that really hasn't done much to the South African society. I'm suggesting that we should rather have a change of mental state in our society to be able to embrace the Constitution as well. I mean,
it's interesting you're raising the issue of the Constitution, though, Faisal, and I think you're opening another, let me say, a can of worms, because the issue is whether or not everybody subscribes and everybody believes in what the Constitution says.
But that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that those values are there already. The only
are they shared values
in our country that will bind us together is the Constitution. Now, it's no use saying let's argue about the Constitution. Then we're going back to the old argument. Then we are not really becoming a social cohesion nation.
So in other words, you're saying the values that are in the Constitution must be, let me say, for a lack of a better word, must be enforced.
No. I'm saying not because it's already enforced. I mean, there's nothing else we can do. I'm saying that we need a change of mental state of our nation. We need to get all South Africans behind our Constitution to say these are the values that represents all the South Africans themselves.
Yeah. Okay. That's Faisal in Mayfair. Anne is in Mpumalanga. Hello, Anne.
Lenny, yes, and thank you so much for your great programs. I have a few points that I would like to bring out in order to develop social cohesion in the rural areas, and I'm particularly talking about the previous homeland areas. Number one, put money into giving jobs, in developing the structure in these areas. For example, road building. There are thousands of jobs in that area. Number two, get the rich, large cooperatives in the urban areas to develop structures for light industrial development here in our rural areas, so as to give jobs to women. I won't bother naming the type of jobs and the types of industries. Okay. Number 3, we need farmers, be they white or black. And so my suggestion is, number 1, that much more could be done to stop the killing of the farmers. And number 2, much more could be done to train our African people in farming, and when they are trained, to give them land on which they can cooperate. I could spend hours talking on this object, but I'll stop at that.
All right, and let me thank you very much. Let me read some SMSs so that I'll give you a sense of what people are saying on SMS. Somebody says, Samuel says, BEE is turning white, unemployed youth into racists, even when they would be happy to have social cohesion. Lindell says the TRC buried 20,000 black-on-black deaths by necklacing uninvestigated. Another one says, Davi, why do I have to repent when I'm not guilty? Must we apologize for being white and crawl? Monica says, education and jobs, not talk about missionaries. Mina says, is the summit open to all? And that's a question that's come through a little earlier on as well. The DJ will respond to that because people are suggesting that perhaps it's just an elitist talk shop. So Mina wants to know whether the summit is open to all and where does one get the discussion documents. There is another SMS that says, another expensive talk shop. The problem is not social cohesion, but rabble-rousing ANC politician who always pull the race card to whip up emotions. TK in Pulugwana says, let's not pretend that white people who account for no more than 12% of the population still own about 70% of our land and wealth. And SMS as well says, the ANC, I beg your pardon, the ANC Youth League, COSATU, SACP are disagreeing on everything except when blaming apartheid and the capitalistic system for all present problems. Let's move on, JPE on SMS. Another one, we have learned from true African leaders in African American society that freedom of expression in a democratic society is important. Please ask your guest who is the community. What is the difference between this and the meaningless TRC? Elaine in KZN says there cannot be cohesion while we have BEE. Mike says as long as the sun rises, the difference in culture and values will divide us. Peter in Johannesburg, my president did not defend me when Malema said whites are criminal and you talk social cohesion, we need to respect each other. Zanele, Ridgeway Extension 5, could the DG provide contact details so we can register to participate in this summit? A whole lot of emails as well. Let me just go through a few. There's one from Camilla Pennington, who is with SA Good News. One of the major challenges facing social cohesion in South Africa is the quality of our national narrative. South Africans don't understand the truth of their own country. Our broadcast radio and print media are overwhelmingly negative and only report the bad news. The consequence of this is that we have developed a naming and blaming and shaming culture across racial lines and between civil society, the private sector and government. Part of improving social cohesion must be a deliberate focus on creating a more positive national narrative. Camilla Pennington from SA Good News on email. Another email came through from... who is this? Malan Parayachi, who says, lots of good citizens and progressive and patriotic South Africans, including former anti-apartheid activists, are passionate about contributing to social changes, nation building and non-racialism and non-sexism. But they are alienated by the inequality of BEE, pro-Africanism, identity crisis about who is black, and new language of labeling critics as unpatriotic, as well as a new trend that Indians were less discriminated under apartheid. Racism has to step aside together with corruption and poverty and joblessness before we achieve a full multiracial and cosmopolitan society like Brazil. Malan Parayachi on email. Lots of your emails. I'll read a few more and take more calls on 0891104228. My guests will respond as well, and I'll look at SMSs at 34701. It's 9 minutes now before 9.
The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
More SMSs and then calls. I'll get comments from my guests. Vusi in Pretoria says it is easy for Davi to be conciliatory when white people got to keep all the ill-gotten gains of apartheid and colonialism. JPE says the government is constantly playing the race card. The great evil apartheid inflicted on black people was a loss of self-esteem. Born frees are only hope. Another one says, democratic states are no guarantee for unity. It's just a sketching free the art sector, just like the copy of democracy. Never heard of this. We're using. Daniel Sitola says, if whites can open their golf courses to blacks, then we can know each other better. David Mtunza says, comparatively, cohesion is better realized in a single or common language speaking country. Simon Mohapi in Klaksdorp, the continuing inequality and legalized injustice of black dispossession of land and its riches shall forever keep us apart. Let's hear from TK in Johannesburg. Good morning, TK. Hello, welcome.
Yes, my contribution is basically you cannot have social cohesion in SA until basically we go back to the fundamentals, and the fundamentals is land. I think maybe if it was Japan is easier, China is easier, but the fundamental problem with South Africa is economic, and until you address that, we really are not getting anywhere. And if you look at our history, I think even going back to Mandela, that's where we got it wrong. We went for this rainbow nation, this very fuzzy logic, and never really got down to the basics of saying it's a question of land. It doesn't really mean anything if we get along, but there's always inequality. You go back to Sandton, I go back to the township. And really, it just creates more animosity. And the example I want to cite is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe underwent the same thing. They went for the reconciliation, but look where they are about 20 or 30 years forward. They have problems, and it's all based on land.
Sure. All right, TK in Johannesburg, I'll get you a response in a second. Togozani in Potchefstroom, good morning.
Good morning, Kolani.
Hi, welcome, Togozani.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I'm actually for a social cohesion because there is no way that we can move forward without addressing this hurt that we have as Black South Africans, because we were hurt and we have no one that we can go to and say, listen, I was hurt by what you did. The term going forward together only rests on the two parties agreeing that there was something wrong that happened in the past. We need to address it. The coexistence will not exist if only one party is willing to move forward with the other.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, because we need that entitlement that people have. We need to address that so that we can all belong to a South Africa.
Tozani, let me get closing remarks from my guests. Let me start with Davi Nodia again. Davi, if you may as well give out your email address for people.
Yes, my email address is D for Darby, of course, and then F for Francois, nodia@gmail.com. That's dfnodia@gmail.com, and I would look forward to responses. Yes, I would just like to say that, I cannot reverse the past or anything, but I'm not going to sit and live oblivious to what's going on in my country. I'm going to say I'm out there and I want to make a difference. And so if anybody wants to, if I need it or if I need to do anything, I'm going to be there and I'm going to try and do something. So not sit just on the sideline.
All right. Thank you very much. That's Davi. Dr. Marjorie Jobson, your final comments for me?
Kulani, I really valued the beginning of this conversation. I think the answer is to start with the personal healing. I know that millions of rand that have been pumped into supporting cooperatives have not borne fruit because the people in the cooperatives have not resolved all the hurt from the past. So the cooperatives end up becoming fragmented and disrupted. And yes, the issues are economic, and we have in this country an opportunity to build different economic systems, alternatives, like solidarity economy opportunities, and I hope we will get there together.
Sure. Mr. Glaba, your comments then, and also just broadly responding to the comments we've heard so far.
Sure. Firstly, let me say that the summit is open to everyone. We are targeting organizations, civil society organizations, business organizations, youth organizations, and religious organizations. That's who we are targeting, but it is not exclusive to anyone. It is open to everyone, and I will give our website where people can download the document. It's not yet on there, but it will be loaded by the end of this week. It's www.dac.gov.za. That's www.dac.gov.za. That's where people can get the document and as well as the details of the summit. But in fact, I've just taken David's email address because I would love to invite him to get involved also in community conversations that are happening across the country at localized level, where people are finding solutions to these problems at a localized level. And I think, Xolani, that is the important thing, that this is not just a once-off summit. It's not a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's a systematic process in which we want to agree on action plans, monitor them, and evaluate them as we go along.
All right. I really thank you very much as well for coming through. Let me thank all my guests. Dennis Busiso Xaba, DG, Department of Arts and Culture. DG, by the way, Director General, Department of Arts and Culture. Also, Davino Dear, as well as Dr. Marjorie Jobson. I thank you very much all for coming through. Dr. Jobson, by the way, National Director of Khulumani Support Group. I thank you for listening to our program, your contribution, SMSs, emails, as well as calls this morning. I thank the team who put it all together. Our producers, Mesho Shandlale and Wisane Makubele. Technical producer, Judy Mutupi. Senior producers, Lungile Mabaso and Chili Ditibase. Forum 8 producer, Jake Mugoma. Chief producer, Botsi Lukoto. Executive producers, Obrise Chie and Busichana. Xolani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 tomorrow here on SAFM. Time now for Morning Talk. Cheers. For Morning Talk. Cheers. For Morning Talk. Cheers. For Morning Talk. Cheers. For Morning Talk. Cheers.